Do you get really anxious going into games? Does this anxiety cause you to underperform? If so, then we want to work to make sure that you are as prepared as possible. And that's what we're going to cover in today's episode. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, a mental performance coach who works with athletes from around the world on building a stronger mental game. Now, preparation helps us with anxiety because the more prepared we are going into games, the more confidence we're going to have. But also, the more prepared we are in different respects that I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes, the less anxious that you will be in the first place. And then also, the more prepared you are to handle the anxiety when it does come up. Now, when we talk about preparation within sports, I don't know about you, but the first thing that comes to my mind is physical practice. So, how much are you physically practicing throughout the week to be prepared to compete? Now, I'm going to guess that you are preparing pretty close to as much as possible from a physical standpoint, especially if you're considering working on your mental game or you're trying to figure out why you're anxious. I'm going to guess that you practice a lot. But if you don't practice a lot, or if there is room for improvement, that is a place that we want to look first. How much are you preparing for the competition, and how much work are you putting in to make sure that you are physically ready to compete? The reason that this physical preparation helps us so much when it comes to anxiety is because anxiety itself is focused on fear and doubt. I don't know if I can play well today. I really hope I don't mess up because I'm afraid of getting pulled or I'm afraid of what my stats will look like. So then I start trying to control the result. I don't trust that I can get the result. And the more I try to control it, the more anxious I get, the more tight I play, the more tension I play with, and it just doesn't help me perform well. And that's where I find underperforming happen as a result of this anxiety. The more prepared you are physically, so you can go into a game and say, I trust my preparation. I feel like my skills are where they need to be. The more you can let go of this need to control the result. But there's also something to be said for mentally preparing for the competition, and that's really what I'm referring to when I'm discussing this idea of using preparation to help us with anxiety. We want to make sure that we are preparing as much as possible throughout the week, knowing that we will likely feel anxious, and then we also want to prepare for how we will handle the anxiety in the moment. Because what we don't want to have happen is that we show up to the game and we were hoping that we wouldn't feel anxious today, but then we feel anxious. And as a result of that, now we start to panic and become anxious about the fact that we are anxious, since we know that this anxiety ends up hurting our performance. So what preparation looks like mentally in order to reduce your anxiety involves mental exercises that you do throughout the week to work on building your confidence, and also mental exercises that you do throughout the week to work to calm your mind and help you be more present. Now, I've talked a lot about these different mental exercises, so if you've listened to any of my episodes or watched my YouTube videos, they'll probably be pretty familiar to you. But my two favorite when it comes to preparing for a game, especially when we know we're going to be anxious, is to make sure that we are going through visualization throughout the week so that we are building this trust in ourselves and our skills, but also working on using a mindfulness exercise every day, whether that's mindfulness meditation or, just trying to be present and use some mindful breathing throughout the day. But we have to work to mentally prepare ourselves to be confident and to be present. The more confident you are, the less you have to stress and try to control the result. The more present you are, the less your attention is in the future. And it's when your attention is in the future that this anxiety grows. So if you use visualization throughout the week, so you're imagining yourself playing well, you are putting yourself in different scenarios, you're seeing yourself succeed, and you use some mindfulness throughout the week where you're working to practice being present, it's more likely that you will be in a good mental state on game day. But we also have to take into consideration, what are you doing that morning of the game or even the night before the game to help yourself feel calm and to feel confident and to trust in yourself. And that's where we also want to have a pregame routine in place. So you're doing some exercises the night before, maybe the night before you review your strategy for the next day, or maybe the night before you think through some really good times you've played in the past to build that confidence, or maybe you do some more visualization or some more breathing. And then maybe the next morning, so the morning of game day, you ground yourself in the moment with some meditation. And then you remind yourself of your past successes, and then maybe you focus on some calming and confident self talk as the game begins. If you are practicing as much as possible, and then you honestly stay consistent with a mental preparation routine throughout the week and then a pregame routine, you're going to be in a much calmer and more confident mindset as the game begins. But there's one final piece to this whole idea of using preparation to help us with anxiety, and it's the idea of preparing for being anxious. Now, I know I just said that if you go through that preparation process and you do these exercises and you practice as much as possible, you'll feel less anxious. And that's true. But the truth is, you'll also probably still feel a little anxious. And so, what we also want to have in place is a strategy for you to use when you feel anxious or when you start to feel fear or try to control the result when you actually play. When I'm working with athletes in my one on one coaching, we always go through this anticipation exercise where we think through everything we can anticipate that will distract them or make them feel anxious, make them doubt themselves. So we think through that and then we come up with strategies. Because not only do you want to be able to trust yourself that you can play well, but you also want to trust yourself that you can manage yourself well. You want to trust that you can manage your anxiety. You can manage your negative thinking. You can manage your frustration. And when you have that level of confidence, you no longer fear these emotional states or these mentalities. And by not fearing them, you reduce a large amount of negative emotion and you work against the negative relationship we currently have. And then when these emotions or these mentalities form in the moment, we approach them in a lot calmer of a way. Because if I'm anxious and I don't know how to manage my anxiety in the moment, as soon as I notice, so the first indicator that I'm anxious, I'm likely to panic. And then that only exacerbates the situation and it becomes even more difficult for me to manage my anxiety because, again, now I'm not just anxious about the game, I'm anxious about the fact that I feel anxious. And I know that's going to hurt me as I go into the game and as I keep playing the game. But if I know that there's a strategy that I've used before and it's a strategy that's been effective for me, I don't have to panic as much. I just have to apply my strategy. So for this third part, I want you to think through what can you do in the moment that will help reduce your anxiety. And the simple framework to follow, I'm going to share a sample strategy here in a second, but a simple framework to follow is that when we are anxious, there are a few things that we want to do. We want to work to bring our attention back into the present moment, and we want to work to calm ourselves down. If we can do those two things, it's much more likely that we're going to work through this anxiety. The reason we want to bring ourselves back into the present moment is because anxiety itself is, centered in the future. It's centered on what we don't want to have happen, what we hope happens. So we are trying to control the result. At that moment, our mind or our thinking and attention is in the future. So if we can bring ourselves back into the present moment, that's going to help reduce that anxiety. And then when it comes to calming ourselves down, this is used because when we do get anxious, we tend to get stressed and we tend to play with a lot of tension. And so when we calm ourselves down and we work to relax, that works against the physiological changes that take place when we do experience anxiety. So a simple resetting technique that you can use when you start to feel anxious is called the ABCs. Accept, breathe, change my thinking. So I accept that I'm feeling anxious right now. That works against the panic. And then I breathe. So I take a few deep breaths to ground myself in the present moment and work to calm myself down. And then I change my thinking. Changing my thinking involves either using positive self-talk to tell myself, I've got this, I know I can play well, I just need to trust myself. Or changing my thinking could involve recentering my attention onto something that's happening right now. In other words, recentering myself onto a controllable objective that I need to be focused on right now in this moment. When you think ahead of time about what your strategy will be when you feel anxious, again, that just helps increase the trust you have in yourself that you can handle this emotional state. So no longer do you need to panic when you feel anxious. So my final question for you is, are you doing everything you can in preparation for the game, from the physical and mental side, to manage your anxiety during competition? If the answer is no, then that's a great opportunity for you to work to reduce the anxiety. If you feel like you are preparing enough, maybe you need to reconsider what you're doing mentally. Or maybe it's going to be about working to improve your in-the-moment strategy when you feel anxious. But managing our anxiety as athletes is all about preparing for the situation, building our confidence, working to be present. And when we do those things, we notice ourselves able to play more freely because anxiety is no longer holding you back quite as much. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you're interested in learning more about managing your anxiety or working through any other mental challenge, I've put a link to my one-on-one mental coaching program in the description below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I wish you the best of success in all that you do.